Hello and welcome to Market Psychology 101, where we look for value in the markets when there's fear and are cautious when there's greed. In today's video, we are going to be taking a look at the Bitcoin rainbow chart as well as Bitcoin price action, seeing if we can get any indication from the indicators where Bitcoin price may be going in the near future. So let's start off with fear and greed. And as you can see, crypto, it's been up in greed for a week or so, really ever since the move that started around mid-October. And if we take a look at the last year, again, we've been talking about this a bit, how we've been creating lower highs, lower lows, and then wondering, is this a reversal of the trend in fear and greed? Well, it's almost reversed. So we'll see if we create a new higher high from this point, and if that correlates with price switching around as well. Of course, I know a lot of you guys who watch my videos have Bitcoin mining stocks or altcoins, and the really important thing to keep an eye out on is Bitcoin dominance. That is the overall percent of money that is in crypto but is in Bitcoin. So right now that's near 60%, and when that money rotates from 60% of all crypto money being in Bitcoin into altcoins, it tends to be a really good time to make money, or at least it has the last two cycles. Hopefully that continues. So another chart to look at is the alt season index. You can see here creating higher highs, higher lows. Did have a little bit of a peak here, and Bitcoin dominance recently has been going up towards that 60% mark. And oftentimes when money is going into Bitcoin and the dominance is going up, altcoin dominance, if you will, is going down a little bit. So we could still be creating a higher low here. And of course, on the Bitcoin rainbow chart, macro-wise, what we're looking for is to be in one of these orange, reddish orange areas when we are taking profits. Of course, nothing here is financial advice, but if you have been buying the bottoms down here and you're looking to take profits, we're waiting to be in the orange area up here. So there's been a lot of theories on when that top's going to be, and I've seen really two main trains of thought. One being the 4-year cycle. You can see we've had a top around the end of every post-halving year in November or December. You can see that right here. So the blue line is the halving, and then the top, November or December of the post-halving year. Blue line halving, top, post-halving year. So the halvings are in the even number years, just like we're in 2024. We had the halving this year. So people are saying, well, the top is probably going to be later next year. So if it's November and we're watching, for example, that orange box, the third one from the top, then maybe you can expect something around a 200,000 Bitcoin. Something I've been talking about, and the reason I like the Bitcoin rainbow chart is we have this phenomena of the diminished returns and decreased volatility. So you can see how each halving, the price goes up a color zone or a color band. You can see that right here. Dark blue, light blue, green, or greenish blue, I guess you could say, and then the light green, okay? And then inversely from the top, above the red, into the dark red, into the reddish orange. And so if that pattern continues, I'm wondering if we'll be here in the orange sometime. The other train of thought or theory that people have is that Bitcoin might top 4 years from this point. March, April of 2021, 4 years from then. And if that were to hold true and we're looking at the orange zone, we'll just go to mid-March right there. Then you can see that orange zone is around 155. That's been a number I've been talking about a lot on this channel. As you know, that's a 2618 Fibonacci extension. I'll explain what that means in a little bit. But that 155 area would be a top I'm looking for if there is a top next March. And as far as seasonality goes, this is worth looking into. Again, I hope you guys can see the days at the bottom there. October to November tends to be, or at least you can see late October, there tends to be more volatility in the markets in election years. And then post-election, typically, most of the time, the markets tend to turn positive after whoever is elected, regardless of political party. So after the election, we could see a pump. And of course, as you guys know, quarter Q4, which is now, October, November, December, tends to be one of the most bullish times of the year, and Q1 can be pretty bullish as well. So that would line up for it, for all the people talking about a March top. Something to keep in mind that if things get very bullish, that we could see possibly the next cycle top by March. But something to keep in mind again is that last time we did have that double top. So the important thing to watch again is Bitcoin dominance when that goes down. And I'll just jump over to Bitcoin dominance very quickly while we're on that topic. As you can see here, when the Bitcoin dominance tanks, this is when alt season took place. You can see the date at the bottom. So late December, we had about a month, late December to the first week of January 2017. That's when alts were going 10, 20x. And here you can see late March into early May. May 10th was really the drop off. But in that time frame is when alts were going in. Some alts might top a little earlier when that dominance is tanking. Some alts might top a little later. There were some alts topping over here. So after Bitcoin dominance went up again, there were some alts moving up here in these areas that did not here. So just something to keep in mind, guys. It's really nice when you pick the right altcoins or Bitcoin mining stocks, but you don't always pick the right one. So if that is a play you're looking at doing, of course, diversify. And if a few of your altcoins run up 5x, 3x, 10x, whatever, that tends to be pretty good profits. And again, something to keep in perspective, because a lot of crypto people are just greedy. They want that big return. If you're getting that return, that's a great time to take profits, especially when something is going if something's even going 2x inside of a year. That's really good. It's not something you even see in the stock market typically, inside of Nvidia. But if you're getting over a 2x or something, a 10x inside of a year, like if you've been buying mining stocks or any of these altcoins like Chainlink, Ethereum, whatever, and you're seeing a 2 to 5x, that's really good. So don't be too greedy and think that it's going to go up forever, because what happens is these things go up and then they go down even harder. So do have a plan on when to take profits. As far as the Bitcoin dominance also is concerned, I have this target of 62%. And the reason why, well, there's a couple reasons. You can see here these two trend lines that came down from the tops and the lower base area that converged. That's right where dominance went up. By the way, it broke right through the convergence of those trend lines. But also, where was the top of Bitcoin dominance in 2021? And you can see there it topped in 2019. It was when Bitcoin dominance first came down and then had that bounce. It was right around here. And we also almost had another peak. So I was looking, where did Bitcoin dominance truly come down the first times? You can see we have these 2 points here, and that's around 62%. So that's just the high of what I'm looking for. Could it go higher? Sure. Might it almost reach there? Maybe 61%, sure. But I think somewhere close to 62% is going to be the top for Bitcoin dominance, and when you have to be ready for it to be go time. All right, let's get into Bitcoin. So a couple of things I wanted to look at with you guys. Right now we are on the weekly time frame. You can see I have these trend lines. Bitcoin's been in love with this trend line since the bottom. We got away from that. Also drew this parallel trend line that Bitcoin, if I turned it on the daily, you can see it's been liking that more, staying in that range. So a couple areas that I've been looking at. Well, first of all, Bitcoin here on the Heikin-Ashi, you can see that we never had a candle body completely close above the 2021 all-time high. That's this gray line right here. We've had wicks above it. We've had part of the candle body above it, but I'm saying the whole candle body closing above and moving on up. We haven't had that, just these wicks. We've had this descending channel, and what's gotten people excited lately is that the wick, the price, been getting above that channel. Now, I do have on the Heikin-Ashi because we try to see the trend, so you can see many green up, about 4 or 5 red down, 4 green up, 5 red down, 2 up, 3 down, 2 up, 2 down, 3 up, 1 down, 3 up. So right there, it almost looks like a 3-wave corrective pattern for any of the Elliott wave people. Not going to get much more into that because I don't understand it well enough. But let's zoom in on the daily. Something I'd be looking for, well, a couple things. Bitcoin might get up to this trend line. And as you can see, if you just look to the left, you can see we have these tops back here. So if Bitcoin continued up on this trend line, even somewhere as high as you can see there around 72,000, I wouldn't be fully convinced that this is truly the breakout yet. So I want to see a break of the all-time high, which is around 74K, just a shade underneath that. I'd like to see a break of the all-time high and a break above this trend line here. So if Bitcoin gets to 74K and starts breaking above this trend line up here, I think that's going to be bullish for Bitcoin. As you can see, it had a nice bounce off the 200-week moving average, came up, came back down, bounced off the 20-day moving average. So right now this move's looking pretty strong. What we want to see is if this move is possibly extended. Now there's a couple indicators I want to take a look at with you. One is RSI, just something to keep in mind. You can see the strength here has been going up a bit, okay? And one thing to keep in mind is you can see how the peaks of the RSI are lower. This one is higher. Okay, we're looking down here at the RSI. But you have the price going up. That's bearish divergence. Again, that might just be, that's minor bearish divergence to me. But as we watch this peak, we want to see where is that getting to? Is that RSI going to stay up here? Because it can. RSI is not always the best predictor. Now, it can show you bearish divergence, but it can take a while to play out. So I was looking through a couple other indicators. One I really like, and that is the moving average convergence divergence, also known as the MACD. And on the weekly, I have a couple bullish indicators for you. On the weekly, you can see this thing's flipping green, and it has just started. As well as you have the blue flipping above the orange. When the blue flips above the orange, tends to be a pretty good area for the price action to move positive. Again, it could just be flipping above briefly and then going back down. It could just be something minor. But there's something bullish to consider, as well as I showed this, I believe, last week. Some of these indicators I only look at every so often, but this whole suite indicator, again, I like seeing trends. You may have heard the trend is your friend. When Bitcoin has gotten through and above, that tends to be bullish, can bounce off it. And when it goes under, that's bearish. So it's getting through and above, maybe that's bullish. Now, something to consider, again, you can see when it gets under, gets rejected, it's bearish. When it got through and above, this was signaling the bottom. So nice little indicator there. Something to consider, though, is in 2019, I'm going to keep talking about this mid-cycle top. 2019, you can see it broke above, but then it came right back down. So really, that was the one fake out that it had there. You can see here was a nice big move as well. Here was a little move sideways, came back down. So a couple little fake outs there, and just something to consider that this may be time that Bitcoin starts moving up, or this could be fake out time. And part of the reason I think maybe we could be getting somewhat of a fake out here, if anything, is unemployment. Unemployment numbers come out this Friday, I believe. And when unemployment has gone down, that's been very bullish for Bitcoin lately. And many of these areas where Bitcoin topped was right before unemployment. So as far as the market, we talk about the stock market, and that's important to an extent because the stock market doing bad. Of course, crypto is not going to be doing so well. But if unemployment has a bad print, I would not be surprised if we just get rejected again. Okay, if the trend overall continues up. Again, I talk about these in my stock market videos. So if it's good, if it's going sideways or down, I think we are going to see Bitcoin this Friday and post this weekend get above that number. Now, something I've noticed as far as price action is I see this with stocks all the time, that when stocks sort of go down into the earnings reports, that after the earnings, if the earnings are great, boom, they shoot up. Inversely, I've seen stocks go up into earnings reports, like they're pricing it in. The earnings report comes out, and even if it's like okay or good or even kind of bad, then boom, they sell it off. So beware of what the price action is doing into whatever news it is. So people might be buying the rumor, and then we'll see what happens with the news, if it's going to make it bullish, or if it's going to make it bearish again. So key time here for Bitcoin. As far as tether dominance, we talk about this. We also have this tether dominance line going up. and support. You can see the moving average right around the 200 week moving average, this trend line. So tether dominance, let's put this on log or off log because that's how this chart works a little bit better. If it breaks down underneath here, then you got to watch this tether dominance trend line. That's when there's been local tops in Bitcoin. And going back to the last cycle, you can see that we did have that mid-cycle top, and then there was a top before the COVID dump. So are we going to get somewhat of a top before a one last sell-off or black swan event? If that were to happen, I'm not saying COVID's going to happen, but who knows? Could be anything. If that were to happen again, just something to keep an eye out for. Hard to predict these things. But as far as Bitcoin, again, what we're looking for is what's the price action going to do? I would say here's the way I'm looking at it. I showed you the election charts. It's normal to see volatility and dips going into the election, but then post-election, Q4, Q1 tends to be very bullish. Okay, so that looks bullish. This chart right now, if it's retesting, if Bitcoin gets above this channel and then comes back down and uses this channel as support, that's bullish. You saw in those other indicators, the MACD, the Hull Suite, those are bullish. Bearish scenarios, I think we have to take a look at what's going on in the market. Unemployment, Fed rate cuts. Fed's going to talk about what rate cut they're doing next month. If the Fed pauses anytime soon, or if they do a 25 base point cut and then they pause sometime soon, I think a pause is what's going to be bullish. So as they're cutting, this is just something to consider. The Fed's cutting large and fast. That tends to mean something's broken in the economy. They're not doing it to be nice. And even though that would seem bullish, that can be pretty bad for the markets. And I know they did 50, but they didn't cut in October, so that's really 225 basis point cuts. But if the Fed's cutting low and slow, and we've talked about the 1998 sell scenario, then that tends to be better for the markets. They'll eventually pause sooner than later, and then the markets would be bullish during that time. So you can see there 2019 as well. We were still bullish for a bit. So just some things to keep in mind. If we zoom out, the other things I'll talk about is just seasonality wise or averages wise. When Bitcoin makes a new all-time high, which it did here back in March before the halving, first time ever, there's typically an average of 300 days from the break of the former all-time high to the next peak. That is around later December this year. The average from the bottoms to the next peak in prior cycles in about 850 days. That lines up with March. Okay, we talked about the 150K top, remember? And then the average from the halving to the next peak would only put us out in August, not November. And again, maybe we'll see what happens as far as seasonality goes. And as far as the fibs, I've talked about this before, that 2618 number being 155K. In my opinion, the next top will be somewhere between this area. Now, maybe it goes higher, but if you draw a fib from the prior high to the low on the prior cycles from the tops to the bottoms, you'll see it loses strength each time. And last time Bitcoin topped, it got between these areas, the 2618 and 3618. So I'd say if we are going further down, or maybe it was up here, I forget. But if we are going down further, then we could be taking a look at somewhere between this number. Let's map that out again. I want to make sure I say the correct thing to you guys. So you can see here, bottom to top, where was the top of Bitcoin? Okay, yeah, it was between the 3618 and the 4236. So Bitcoin, its strength of the move was up here. Again, each cycle, the strength of the move gets lower. That's another reason we look at rainbow charts. And so to show the diminished returns. So I would say most likely somewhere in here, but maybe it peaks above 155K, maybe get somewhere around 170K top. So anyways, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care.